So let's start by coming into a comfortable seated position. Maybe fix your hair, adjust your shirt, wiggle around a little bit. How wonderful it is to be alive. And then bring your hands to heart center and let your thumbs connect to your breastbone. Close your eyes. Take a full inhale, and with your exhale, just sigh it out. And let's just take a moment to maybe dedicate our class to someone who needs some love, some healing, some attention. And we're going to sound 3 ohms. So empty your breath. Take a deep inhale. And then open your eyes, and we're going to start by coming into yin fish. So you bring the bottoms of your feet together and come back onto your elbows, and Lael, just make sure you're muted. And let your head hang back if that's okay for you. If it's too much for you, you can always bring your chin towards your chest. And after about 2 minutes, we're going to lie onto the ground entirely. So just take a couple of breaths and just notice how it feels right away. And it takes a little bit to come into the pose. So with your head hanging, you can close your eyes, feel maybe a little tightness in your shoulders, maybe a little tightness in your hips. But with your eyes closed, maybe you can imagine your fullness. There's a full moon today. And there's technically it's today in the US. For us in Sweden, it's tomorrow early in the morning. And this full moon, the moon is in Pisces. And it's conjunct, which means really close together with Neptune. And it's very close to the North Node. It's in the same sign as Saturn. And so with any eclipse, you really want to look at the whole sky and see what the strong elements are, because it's kind of picked up by these moon forces and the full moon forces of revealing. So if your upper body is not yet on the floor, let your elbows slide out to the side and keep your feet as they are and lie on your back. And then bring your thumbs and your index fingers together and place your hands right over your head like you have a little crown or antlers if you're feeling a little bit more antlery. And take a full breath with your exhale, sigh it out. So another strong feeling that's going on in the sky today is there's a trine between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So these are the outer planets. And in evolutionary astrology, respectively, they are the collective unconscious, consciousness, and our soul. So it's really these parts of our being that we share with all the people alive, and also that we share with all of our lifetime. So you can think of the soul as, in New Age language, when they say soul in anthroposophy, we can think of this as our I, or our higher ego. So even when we spend a lifetime getting to know ourselves, there's still a large part of our beingness that we have yet to discover. Just as, everybody has an unconsciousness, and we share certain elements. We share things in the collective that have to do with the time that we're alive in and the evolutionary stage that we're at. Take another full inhale. And with your exhale, release your arms down and actually stretch your legs long. So you're lying on your back for a moment, coming out of the posture in this neutral position. And then hug your knees to your chest. And we're going to do a good old-fashioned rock and roll. So rock side to side a couple times, massaging your lower back, feeling it massage like your kidney area especially. And then start to roll backwards and forwards. And we're going to roll up into a seat to come into butterfly. So you bring your feet back to where they were. You want your heels about 2 hands length away from your groin. And I always like to start it with a little yang moment first, where you grab onto your shins and then lift your chest up and really feel the expansion and openness of your chest. Take a full breath in, and then with your exhale, soften and bow down, letting your back curve, your head get heavy. You can even, I often spin my hands up so I don't grip with my hands. Just relax my hands, but you can do really whatever feels most relaxed and passive for you. Take a full inhale, and with your exhale, allow your breath to sigh out and notice how your body responds to you. So with every full moon, we have the cycle of, when the moon is full is when something comes really into fruition or flowering. And we can think of, what is happening. The sun is shining all of the surface of the moon up. It's very funny English, but it's illuminating the moon. And so every full moon, there's this theme of illumination. You know, there used to be this homeless guy in Sacramento, and he would come up to you and he would say, "Yo, what's the best nation in the world?" And, you know, probably half the people were like, America, USA. But he would go, no, 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 it's donation. But maybe it actually is illumination. Because when something is illuminated, we have in so many different languages this idea of something is revealed to us. So see if you can find some stillness. Now, Carrie Ann, if your neck is hurting you, I think maybe, you might even be lucky enough to be able to hold your head so you don't hang it so much. Depending on how far you are in the forward bend, that can kind of mitigate it a little bit. So every full moon, every month, we cycle through the 8 stages of the moon. And the full moon is this time of illumination, revelation, you could even say. And when we have an eclipse, often with eclipses, we have themes of letting go. Lunar eclipses also have themes with illnesses. And this one in particular, because it's so close to the planet Neptune, one of the themes is really this illumination of illusion. So what happens when illusion is illuminated? It falls apart. It's the revealing of something. It's something that we lose so we understand what's really there behind it. So when we are seduced by the illusion, it's like we have, you know, a false god in front of us. We believe in something that's not real. With your next inhale, start to roll up. Place your feet on the ground, and we're going to do lion's pose. So you want to feel your feet, push your hands down, your fingers are pointing towards your hips. Lift up your hips, let your head drop back if that's okay for you. Then stick out your tongue, look at your third eye, and with a whisper, roar like a lioness. And then bring your hips back down. Very slyly wipe off your chin. And the next posture we're going to come into is totally not a romantic name at all. It's saddle pose. So we're going to get in the saddle, girls. So you're going to sit on your heels. If this isn't accessible to you, we can always do an extra sphinx. But just try it out. First, you come back onto your elbows. And again, you're hanging your head like you did in the first pose. But then after a couple, probably about 10 breaths, you want to see if you can come all the way down onto your back. You might need to let your knees splay out a little bit. You might need to, I know you're thinking, have a different body, is what Lael is probably thinking. Or you can also put a pillow underneath your head and shoulders, but you want to leave the space underneath your spine free. You want to feel the stretch in the belly of your thigh, or well, both of them. And you want the curve to be expressed in your lower back. You can't hang out here. It's like sort of like casual. Hey, how you doing? Yeah. And get to know the shape. So all of you here have done yin yoga before. But if it's been a hot sec, remind yourself to really let go and try to work in the softness of your body. And I find it often takes a little bit more concentration, like to relax and be still. Feel the quality of your breath that will inform you how you're doing. So I read this wonderful little piece about illusion, and it was like the sacredness of illusion and how wonderful illusion is, because when we see that it's illusion, we notice where the road forward is or where the truth is for us. But Neptune, Pisces, both of these archetypes really house simultaneously the whole world of illusion and the whole world of revelation. So how we trick ourselves as well as how we find ourselves. There are lots of books written on both of these archetypes. And because it's such a confusing archetype to kind of grok, to understand, to really have like a feeling for. But we can really see it, we see it on the extremes of things, on the edges, or not edges, that's like on the fullest expression of things. So in a spiritual adept, we can see it in the mystic. They are living in a world imbued with spirit, moved by spirit, motivated by spirit. But we can equally see this Neptunian quality in the addict, in the person who is fully lost themselves. We could even say in the 8th sphere, in the lower astral, in the world of illusion. Take 3 more full, deep, unhurried breaths. And then slowly help yourself up. And we can come to a neutral position where we lie actually down on our belly for a moment. Stack your forearms. You can just lie still, or if it feels good, you can rock your hips side to side, kind of releasing your lower back. The back bend itself isn't so deep in that pose, but the sensation can be a lot. And then find your way into Sphinx. So the series that we're doing today, we're doing a kidney series. And often when I start or restart the yin series, I start with kidneys. It's traditionally where the Chinese system starts to talk about. But it's the organ and the organ pair with the urinary bladder that is about balance. It's about balancing the yin and yang, the fire and water in your body, the yin and yang in every single organ of your body, And it really is the element that balances even between life and death in our body. Because it is the ruler of these opposites, so to say, or balancing these opposites, bringing these opposites into a dynamic relationship, it also rules all the cycles. So you could think of like the very smallest cycle, like the Krebs cycle in your body, or just how certain foods are broken down, that kind of cycle, the breath cycle. But it also rules like the cycle of the women's cycle during the month. It rules the cycle of aging. And so it does go nicely with the cycles of the moon to kind of play with them at the same time. And in our solar system, we can also really think of that all of the planets are an iteration of the sun. So kidneys specifically connect to Venus. And there's some really nice parallels even when you just look at the astronomy of Venus and how it works with the kidneys, which we'll know. I'll tell you some other time. But by looking at the dynamics of the yin and yang, it's so classic to look at the sun and the moon. To look at Mars with Venus. Just as we naturally look at the feminine in relationship to the masculine. Now, yogi's choice, either stay exactly where you are or extend your arms, coming into seal. So one of the challenges of our yin practice is this discernment between being uncomfortable, being really uncomfortable, and being in pain. So I'm cool with you guys being totally uncomfortable, annoyed, irritated, angry. But you want to make sure that you're not getting like sharp stabbing pain. So when I start to talk and look at themes of Neptune, we feel like we are so immersed in a very Neptunian age, especially as Neptune is in like the final degrees of Pisces before it starts a new cycle when it enters Aries. I believe it's next year. But we can see when we look out into the world how many different illusions are being deceptive for people, like really working for some people, and then super obvious for other people. And we can see this strong kind of, I could say dystopian, but this strong trend of like really getting attached to some of these illusions where it's informing, I was going to say surgeries, but drastic lifestyle changes, the drastic like choices. And especially around these themes of polarity, of yin and yang. Whichever variation you're in, if you're still in Sphinx or if you're in Seal, count 5 more breaths for yourself. And then on the 6th breath, come out of the pose. So when we see, fighting happen because of polarity, we're tempted to say, oh, let's get rid of polarity. Meet in the middle. All right, come down, wiggle your hips side to side. And then bring your hands underneath your shoulders, and we're just gonna hang out in child's pose for a moment. So crawl your knees up, take your knees comfortably wide, stretch your arms long, forehead onto the ground. And then roll up. And we're gonna sit on our heels, and we're gonna just do a little face yoga intermission. So take your hands, you're making kind of like fists, and pretend like you're trying to smooth out or iron your forehead. Beautiful. And then unclench your fists and take your hands and actually just take a moment, and you're going to very lovingly, not too harsh, you're just going to pull up like you're giving yourself a very gentle facelift. Just a little action there. Fantastic. And then take your knuckles to right where your nasal folds go, and then you're going to follow right underneath your cheek. Mm-hmm. You can even do it, sometimes I like to do it with my first 2 knuckles and do one above and one below. It's kind of, it feels natural. It's like a little bit like you're doing gua sha with your knuckles. Beautiful. And then you might have to shake out your hands a little bit, just make sure your shoulders aren't getting tense. Now we're going to massage our jawline here. So you can do it with 1 finger or 2. You put your thumbs right underneath the chin, your chin, sugar. And then make little circles. I'm always surprised how much feeling and sensation I have along my jaw. And you take your fingers and inch them towards the corner of your jaw. Yes, and let's do it again. So you go, the chinny chin chin. Go a little wiggle. And then all the way back. And then on this last pass, we're going to take our knuckles again, and with our thumbs still underneath, and just kind of do acupressure. And so you just take random points and just kind of inch or centimeter your knuckles along your jaw. And maybe do it twice. Now, what I'm surprised always how much sensation there is. And it's also crazy to me, and I didn't really do it to show you guys today, but how much tension your jaw, when you have tension in your jaw, it actually affects the tension in your neck, which is super nuts. Beautiful. And then take the padded part of your fingers and just do some tapping. And you're going to tap lightly underneath your eyes like you're putting on, a little bit of makeup perhaps, just very lovingly, gently, lightly. And then tap all over your face. And then come down your neck. Now, take your hands to your chest, and you put one over the other, and you just pull down a little bit, so just a little bit of tension. And then you're going to take your jaw, your chin to your right shoulder. And today you're going to try to stick your lower jaw out and then pucker your lips. So it's really like you're nearly like making like a monkey face. So sticking out your jaw. Like if you were like going to pretend to be a monkey, like hoo, hoo, hoo. If you're too serious today, you could even make some little monkey noises. Beautiful. And then come back through center and take your chin over your left shoulder, lift your chin up a little bit, and then try to jut your chin out and then pucker your lips. So your lips are a little bit open, yeah? Beautiful. And then come back to center. And we're going to do one last one. We're going to lift our chin up and then stick our tongue and pretend that our tongue is like a windshield wiper. Like you're going to take it right to left, like. Obviously not a Mercedes. Okay, beautiful. And then release, maybe a hint of a smile, and then cross your ankles, and then roll over your crossed ankles. And we're going to come into a forward bend. My yoga mat is deciding to shit on me. Okay. Now, if you're tight in your hamstrings, you can elevate your seat by sitting on the edge of a cushion, and you can also bend your knees a little bit. If your back is feeling good, you just walk your hands forward like little spiders and like soften into it. If your back is a little sensitive, you really want to take a neutral spine and hinge forward as far as you can and then soften down. Take a full inhale with your exhale, sigh out. Feel the heaviness of your head. Imagine maybe that your elbows are really heavy. Your ribs are heavy. You can really let your legs relax in this variation. It's not surprising to hear that the kidneys are ruled by water, even though they are in charge of balancing the water and the fire in your body. But water, like the moon, is often a symbol for the feminine. And just like the feminine archetype, like yin, there's a lot of mystery still around water. Like the work of Jared, but I can't remember his last name. Pollard. He studied structured water, and it's totally fascinating because it is the study of how water acts in different containers, and water has this amazing quality where it like mimics the structure of whatever container it's in. So it reflects it the same way the moon reflects the light of the sun. And how water is in our human body is unlike anywhere else it is naturally. So it actually works more like it's a fourth substance. It's not liquid, it's not solid. I mean, I think someone said, well, have you ever noticed like you don't have a cut and it's just all this water comes out? Yes, there is blood, but it's not like people leak a lot of water. But the water actually acts more like a gel in the body, which makes sense because in the modern meridian theory, there's so much about how energy is communicated. But this quality to be in its own nature and still, without losing its nature, mimic the structure of something else, or like the moon, reflect the light from somewhere else. Is very much part of what our feminine task is, I would say. Now, you might be going, whatever, Rachel, my hamstrings are yelling at me. So make peace, take about 4 more breaths here. Notice if it gets more challenging or less challenging, and when you know it's just a short while left. And then slowly help yourself up. Hug your knees in. Pull your head towards your knees. Give yourself a squeeze. And then lift up your head. You might pivot on your yoga mat. You might not need to if you're on a rug. But you're going to straddle your legs. And again, we want to be mindful about being careful with our backs. So first, you can take your hands behind you and actually let your hands drag and give you a little bit of resistance. Now, if your back is pretty open and your hips are pretty open, you can bring your hands already in front of you. Or if it feels comfortable, like you have more space to go, bring your hands in front and let your hands come down and see how far you can come down with a neutral spine. I'm nearly coming up my 24-year yoga anniversary. I couldn't do this when I started yoga first, so wherever you're at, meet it with kindness, softness. Since we're still also in the sun is in Virgo. And with this archetype, I often think of the kind of the different idea of what virgin is, other than just like, you know, whether the hymen is broken or not. And virgin really, it's connected actually to Mary. Of course, we think of Mother Mary and the virgin birth and all this, and this is no accident because it really refers to, esoterically, a state of pureness. And Rudolf Steiner talks about how Eve is created, that God reached into Adam and created Eve out of his rib. Symbolizes how the feminine, Eve, is created so that Adam, the masculine, can know his interiorness, can know his insides. So all three, Eve, Virgin, and Mary all have to do with kind of this level of integrity and coherentness, like being so much yourself, like water is so much water, that you can actually reflect the other back to them. So both the Virgin and Mary being terms that were referred to not to like a state of like the hymen, as I said with the Virgin, but actually a pureness of soul, actually also often indicated a priestess status. So Mary was synonymous with saying priestess, and that's a little bit why there's multiple Marys in the Bible. Now I'm going to dive more deeply into these themes in the workshop I'm doing on Saturday on the bandhas and the feminine principle of transmutation. But when we have Virgo, it always makes me think of this idea of that purity of our own nature being such that we can actually reveal the other to themselves. Or in the theme of this eclipse, allow someone to actually notice what is illusion, to reveal an illusion even. Notice if you're resisting and your body can soften a little bit more towards the ground, or if you're at your edge. And then start to slowly walk your hands back towards your groin, and then pull your knees in. They might need a little bit of help. We've been there for a moment, and give yourself a hug again. Let your head drop. Lift up your head and slowly roll down onto your back. If your hips are tight, you can put your feet on the ground and slide your buttocks to the left and then drop your knees to the right. If your hips aren't that tight, just drop your knees to the right. You can take your right hand on your right knee and either look right above you or look to your left. Take a full inhale. With your exhale, just sigh it out. So it is possible to do yoga and just go through the physical motions of doing the practice. But when we're able to add a practice of self-knowledge to our physical yoga practice, a practice of meditation as well, and even of study, of esoteric study, then this encountering of illusion doesn't break us, doesn't feel, I mean, sure, it can still feel like a loss. But it becomes part of the journey, just like winter is part of the journey of a deciduous plant. You know, the leaves can obscure the limbs of a tree and make it look one way. And then poof, they lose all their leaves and they can't hide their own form, so to say. So when the body gets sick, it's showing us where we're out of balance. When the heart gets sad, it's showing us where we're out of balance. With your next inhale, bring your knees back to center. If you slid your hips to the left, now come back to center and then slide your butt to the right and take your knees to the left. Take a full inhale. With your exhale, just sigh it out. In this eclipse cycle, it's also really an opportunity. Loss is the thing that happens to us, but when we step into it on purpose, then we let go. So an illusion might be such that is revealed to you that asks you to let go of something that's in your way, so to say, of you becoming more of who you'd promised to be. And as always, what's so cool is we don't actually have to know anything explicitly about the astrology to understand that these themes rise up in us, in our own becoming, rise up from our unconscious, from our soul, to become action guides on our path. Rudolf Steiner does talk about how, though, if someone in this lifetime denies their soul or denies their connection to the cosmos, that in their next lifetime they will have a sense of being lost and desperately trying to figure out how to find their way to connect with the planets, to connect with the world. So if we don't let certain illusions be revealed, it seemingly will blind us more in later incarnations. So feel the loss, mourn the losses, but without losing touch with the flame of faith that you are on the path. So roll back to center, and we're going to finish with a little happy baby pose. So lying on your back, grab onto your feet. I like to grab onto the inside, and you want to pull or just hang out here, so to say. Your hands are hanging on your feet. Your back is still connected to the ground. Your feet are over your knees as much as possible. And then you feel how just hanging your hands on your feet really becomes a hip opener. And then hug your knees to your chest. Maybe lift up your face. Kiss your knees. Thank you for taking you this far. And then stretch your heavenly body long. Palms open to receive. Eyes closed. If your lower back is sensitive, you can always have your knees bent with your feet as wide as your yoga mat and let your knees drop back together. With your next inhale, start to deepen your breath. Bring your awareness to the edges of your body. Wiggle your fingers and your toes, your face and your nose. And then stretch your body long, wiggling your hands over your head, stretching your hands away from your feet. And then with your exhale, curl into a ball and roll onto your side, feeling the vibrancy in your body. And then help yourself up into a comfortable seated position. Allow your hands to meet at heart center. If you dedicated your class to someone, feel free to lift up an image of their face in your mind's eye, of them healthy and smiling. And let's close with one final Om. Empty your breath. Take a deep inhale. Bring your prayer hands to your third eye. Invite the divine light. And as we bow forward, together we say, Namaste. And so much love. Now make some noise. That's to bring us here. If you want to give yourself some clapping, you did a great job. That's fair too. Little polite golf clap. You can do it. I like that one, Ceci. A little like, oh yeah, well done, babe. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here.